This is a cool move by Mom.
Yeah.
I don't have any chill like this.
Me either. Hey everybody, welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan.
I'm Wendy.
And today we are recapping The Way Home, episode 3, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. If you'd like to connect with us outside of the podcast, you can follow us on Instagram. We are both at Girls Gone Hallmark and at Megan and Wendy.
You can also jump into our Facebook group, Girls Gone Hallmark. Come talk about this show or any of the Hallmark movies or anything adjacent, really.
Couple quick things to say about The Way Home before we jump into our recap.
Yeah, I'll start. Episode 3 this week, the episode we're reviewing, it pulled in 1.4 million live viewers. So they're staying pretty steady with their views there. It hasn't really dropped off, which is great.
Yes, I'm very happy to see that. I've seen a lot of good hype from the community, I would say, around the show. I think it's being well received. I really like it. So I hope others are enjoying it too, because I want to see it keep going.
Me too.
I hear we have some behind the scenes news for episode 3.
We have a new director in episode 3.
And it is Nimisha Mukherjee. So far, she's credited with 2 episodes. So I think we're going to get episode 3 and 4 from this director.
Right. And she's an award-winning director, writer, and producer. And I'm just excited to have like a female behind the camera, actually. I don't even know
On a show like this.
Yeah. But side note, I don't know who directed the first 2.
Grant Harvey.
Oh, okay. So it was a dude. Yeah.
And Grant Harvey is more of a TV series director than a movie director, for what it's worth. So looking at his directing credits, it's a lot of TV series, which of course is what we're talking about, but I would say he's not deep in the Hallmark universe, was my point there.
Right. And while Nimisha isn't either, she is known for her documentaries. Oh. However, she's done shows like Big Shot on Disney Plus, a show that I love, of Virgin River, a couple episodes of that, an episode of a show called The Imperfects. She is from Canada, so I believe a lot of the work she does is Canadian.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into our recap of The Way Home, episode 3, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Are you ready for a synopsis?
I am.
Alice falls in love with the past and has her first kiss. Kat starts a job with the local newspaper, and Dell deals with bittersweet memories attached to Colton's boat.
Alice falls in love with the past? I love that line.
Do you?
I do. I think it's great with what we know happens in this episode.
Yes.
Double meaning. All right, this episode opens. We have Dell cooking breakfast, and Kat comes in, and Dell's going to Dell. She tells Kat to look for a job. Kat wants to keep writing. Dell tells her she needs to prove that she can make money as a writer. Like that little bit of softening we got at the end of episode 2 is gone. She's back to being hard-ass Dell. Get your butt to work, Kat.
Yeah, I think by the 3rd episode here, I'm a little bit tired of this conversation. Like, Kat, it's time to do something now. Or Dell, you need to leave it alone. But honestly, Kat really needs to do something.
You feel like Dell is right.
I do. And I know that's different from how you feel.
Well, I don't feel like she's wrong. But again, the timeline is there maybe 3 days in.
Yeah,
maybe 4. It takes a minute to find a new job.
I think you're soft and sweet. You're going to be that mom that lets your adult children live at your house forever.
I think perhaps, yes, I'm a little bit of a softie. I haven't lived at home since I was 17 years old. Alice enters and she's full of sunshine. She puts mint in Kat's tea. She's been up early, working on the farm apparently. And she says she's going to, quote, head out to hang out with Spencer and Zoe. Dun dun. And I don't know about you, but I was like, oh, she's got friends. I'm so naive.
You are. I'm thinking teenagers gonna lie. This was kind of funny because as a mom to a 15-year-old, my little radar would be up if she came in and was chipper as Alice was, something is going on.
Yeah, totally. Well, Alice says, oh, in time, I found my place again. Once again, it's been 3 days. So even though we could make an argument for Kat getting to, I do think it is still early days for Alice to have found her place among a new group of peers. So I thought that was funny. But like you, Kat's radar is peaked.
And she asks Del, are there drugs here now? Which I thought was so funny.
And Del tells her to chill.
Yeah, see, and this makes me wonder, like, Del being so kind of chill, considering that she lost a child who went missing.
Yeah.
And she's just so very like, oh, it's fine. Alice is going to be fine, is very sus to me.
Agree.
So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out.
This mother-daughter moment is interrupted by someone arriving at the farm. We hear voices outside, and Del and Kat go outside to investigate.
So we have two strangers, essentially, and they're like, hey, we heard about this boat might be for sale, and we're interested. And then, of course, we get a flashback scene. Del is remembering when Colton brings the boat home, and he's like, look at Deli, look at this great boat. He's like so hyped for it. And she's pretty stunned that somebody wants to take the boat from her.
I first want to say high five to the editing team in this episode. There are so many great flashbacks interwoven with these scenes. I think on a greater volume than we've seen in the past episodes. And it just lends so much more information. The pacing in this episode is great. But Del's reaction surprised me. Not that she was upset, but that she agreed, I think it's time to let her go.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. But then again, not, because why had she been holding onto this boat for so long when she has gotten rid of mostly everything else? So, unless because it's, I was saying because it's Colton, but I mean, she did get rid of his stuff too. So,
or that it's easier to throw away a box full of items and much harder to ditch a giant boat in a dumpster.
Yes. And to your note about the editing and how great they like weave in these like memories to give us like context and everything. Very hard to do when you're writing notes to recap on a podcast.
I know. 1999, present day. 1999, present day.
Oh, this is a flashback, but we're not actually in 99. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness gracious. But it's done very well.
It is. It's an enjoyable watch.
Yes. And then we get our opening title. No opening music, nothing. Just The Way Home.
Nope.
And Alice, in the next scene, Alice is in the pond. We are in 1999, and she comes across a backpack that Elliot has hidden for her that has dry clothes, which then solves the problem of her always being wet when she arrives to Kat's house, right?
Yeah, I wondered, had they had a discussion about that? Because she went right to it. And I originally thought, oh, good job, you stashed clothes. And then we find out via a note that it's Elliot's doing.
Right, exactly. And he picked out some terrible clothes for her. Actually, I didn't think it was that bad. It looked like a muumuu. I don't know.
Like a prairie dress. Something you wear in 2023.
I mean, she had like cute Doc Martens on with it. And it worked to me, but Kat was horrified when she saw it. Kat was like, what are you wearing?
Kat was horrified. So as Alice walks away from the woods, we hear There She Goes by Sixpence None the Richer playing, and I'm going to call this our first notice in the 90s moment. It is background music, but
yes. I did a little deep dive on this song. First of all, it originally came out in 1989 by a band called The Laws. They're like a English band. It never really charted here in the States, and then Sixpence None the Richer re-released it in 1999 for a movie called Snow Day. But for me, this song, how many times have I watched Gilmore Girls? It is in the first episode of Gilmore Girls, which also came out in
2000. But
okay, so it was a hit prior to that. Anyway, this is where I see like a parallel of like two shows. For me, Gilmore Girls always had excellent music in it. And now we're seeing this show, which I feel so far has also had really good music in it. So there are these like little similarities that I really am enjoying.
I agree. They're like almost like, Gilmore Girls is kind of the classic mother-daughter drama show. It's almost like a nod to that show that laid the groundwork for future shows like this.
Agree. And if you've ever watched, and I know this is not a Gilmore Girls podcast, but if you've ever watched Gilmore Girls as a parent, it's a totally different story than watching it as a young adult.
We see the boat in 1999 first, and then Alice is greeted by Colton and Dell, and Kat calls to her through a window. And when she walks in her room, we get that scene Wendy reference where she says, "What are you wearing?"
Yes. And the best part here in this whole scene is something I did as a teenager and what we see Kat doing. And she is waiting for the song to come on the radio so she can press record on her tape recorder.
I loved it.
To make a mixtape.
Alice says mixtapes are so vintage, and Kat, and maybe my favorite line in the show, says, "This is a CD player and a tape player."
Yeah, man. You were balling with a CD player and a tape player. Just like the TV that had the VCR built into it too, right?
Oh, yeah. I had one of those.
So, of course, she's playing Britney Spears' Baby Hit Me One More Time. This was the best-selling single of 1999. Still hits in 2023, I think.
I think we need some sort of like noticed in the 90s like music when we have these moments, because that's definitely a notice in the 90s moment for me.
100%.
And then we have a moment where Alice picks up Kat's copy of Alice in Wonderland. This is the second time we've seen this book in this show. You know, part of me wonders, is it just an allusion to the fact that Alice is kind of like through the looking glass, like she's gone back in time? Or is this book going to have some greater meaning that we're not fully aware of yet?
Yeah. I don't know. Well, and also, we never have an explanation of like how Alice was named Alice. Did Kat name Alice after the book, or did Kat name Alice after the friend that she had in 1999?
Alice is named after herself, because in the first episode,
I remember,
she says she named me after me. She had been told she was named after her childhood friend Alice.
I know, but why is there no like connection to the Alice in Wonderland book?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I guess we don't know yet that there isn't.
Yeah, right.
And then Elliot comes running in. "Guys, I got it." And the next scene, notice in the 90s, pew, 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 we hear the dial-up internet sounds of our youth. Do you remember getting the AOL CD in the mail?
Yes, I do.
For me, it was a hard sell to get my parents to let me to sign up for it. Like, they didn't know what it was. What are we paying? Because you had to pay for a subscription to have AOL.
Right.
What are we paying for? So when I was finally allowed to get AOL and set it up, and by the way, it took forever to set it up. Yes. It was a big day for me, too. So I could feel that moment, that victory.
I remember I would take the phone line, because at that time it was a dial-up modem. You were using your regular like landline at home, and I would be on the internet, and somebody would pick up the phone to use the phone, and I'd be like, and it would disconnect me, and I'd be like, "Damn it, I'm on the internet!" You know,
I am.
Oh my goodness, it took me back to hear that modem sound, and it makes me so sad. Like, our children will never understand that.
They'll never understand the struggle.
They walk around with a computer in their hand all day long,
right?
You know?
Look, when I went to college, we had to have a special card, like a piece of hardware installed in our computers in order to be able to access the really cool high-speed internet on campus. Like, it was no Wi-Fi. It was plugged into a wall. And I had to have like someone from the IT department come to my dorm room and install that in my computer. And that person's name was Nick Alt and is a friend of mine to this day.
Oh, funny.
But I mean, the things we went through to get the internet.
Yeah, it's funny. It's really funny to hear Kat say something like, "Why can't you just call her?"
Yeah.
It was kind of a new frontier. It was very cool to talk to people like all over the world, you know?
Yeah, Alice says, yeah, the internet is a really big deal where I come from.
Next scene, we are back in present day, and Elliot, what's funny?
Just one of Kat's lines.
Oh, okay. We are back in present day, and Elliot is at the diner, and Kat is reaching her new book as a Laura Ingalls Wilder, but with cars, and she is immediately hung up on, which I don't hate it. She's just trying to get that book deal, but doesn't want to write the story about Jacob, obviously. Monica comes, refills Kat's coffee. She basically shades her on drinking more coffee and about drinking alcohol, because Kat says something how she wants something harder, but, you know, they're at a diner.
Yeah, it's clearly the morning. I mean,
right. Exactly.
Monica says, oh, I used to need alcohol on hard days too. Which, I don't know. A little too holier than thou in that moment.
Agree.
We cut back to 1999 and everyone's standing around the boat. And this is where we meet young Danny Sawyer. And we learn that my prediction last week was correct. This is a buddy of Jacob's.
All right. BFF.
And Kat is on team boat. She wants this boat to happen. Del's not totally sold. She feels like it's, I think, going to be a lot of work. But Colton has that gleam in his eye. He's got a dream and he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, that's too much work for me. Like, they're like, let's get this boat in ship shape. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm the Del in this situation who's like,
I wouldn't even know where to begin. Yeah.
Yeah, you want that to float on water?
Next scene, we have Kat. She's at the newspaper on the suggestion from Elliot that she should pitch to work at the newspaper, the local newspaper. So she's with Byron and they're talking. She's telling him what a great, like, award-winning journalist she is and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you're Del's daughter, right? Okay, you're hired.
Yeah, it's such a quick turnaround. He goes, well, this is kind of a one-man operation, but you're Del's kid? Okay.
Yes, and it makes me wonder, a newspaper, or is this a daily newspaper? Is a one-man operation?
I refuse to believe this is a daily newspaper.
It has to be like the community paper that comes out once a week, right?
That's my guess too. Jump back to 1999 and everyone's on the porch of the farmhouse and Jacob's like, Alice, why do you only come around sometimes? I don't know what's happening here. And they tell him to lay off, but this is a very sweet scene of Colton playing the guitar. Alice joins in. I really like these musical scenes. I don't always love a musical scene in a show, but I really enjoy when Alice is playing, when Colton is playing and singing.
Yes. The way Colton looks at Del in this scene when he's singing to her, I'm like, these two were so in love. Like it brought up a lot of feelings. I was like, it's very sweet the way he looks at her.
Yeah. Jump back to the present day, and Del is Delling and is annoyed that Byron has hired Kat. Del, you wanted her to get a job, like at some point. Did you really want her to work at the point? Is that really what you wanted for her?
I mean, I think so. I think she was like, you need to give up this writing gig and do some hard work. I don't know. Not that writing's not hard work. It is hard work, but I don't understand Del's. She's like a dog with a bone here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we can agree that writing a book is different than working on staff at a newspaper where you're going to have a steady paycheck as opposed to writing something that someone may or may not buy in the future.
Exactly. Well, Alice returns and Kat notices that she's damp. And I was like, Alice, girl, you need to leave a towel behind when you jump in that way. So when she comes back, she can at least dry off when she changes her clothes.
But the biggest issue here is her hair. Her hair is always wet.
Yes, that too. Yeah. What a drag. Alice sees the Polaroid on the counter and kind of like freaks out a little bit. But then hears Del say that, Del's going to sell the boat. And Alice is clearly upset about it.
Having seen the magic.
Yes, exactly. And of course, like Kat and Del don't understand Alice's like reaction because they obviously don't know what she just has experienced back in 1999, like the loving family, and they're very together. And Alice says like, doesn't understand like why they don't remember that they used to care about each other.
Right.
And like what has happened.
Yeah, so Kat should be happy because she's got her moody teenager back in this moment.
Exactly.
Still in the present day, we cut to the high school. Elliot is talking to teachers, and in Alice's never-ending pitch to get him arrested and or fired, she runs up and says, I found a Polaroid. And he says, could you please stop doing that?
Yeah, this is going to raise too many questions about their relationship. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, I think it comes at comic relief. I don't think there's going to be anything to come of it, but it is pretty funny. I like it.
It's a nice running bit. Alice is worried that Kat has figured out time travel, and Elliot's not worried, but again, great line. He says, keep an eye on the Polaroid. If you pull a Marty McFly and start to disappear, we have a problem. And Alice has no idea what he's talking about.
She says, you're so old. It's quite funny.
Has your daughter seen Back to the Future?
She has, yes.
Yeah, yes. It's one of my husband's favorite movies, so my kids have seen it multiple times, but I don't.
You can't be like the flux capacitor.
Oh, they would know. My kids would know that. I don't know if kids in general, if it's part of their
lexicon.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, it's funny because I looked back to see when Back to the Future came out. It came out in movie theaters in 1985.
Yeah.
And Elliot, I'm guessing, is 15 in 1999. So the movie had come out 14 years prior. So I think that he would be familiar with a Back to the Future joke, right?
Yeah, I think it's a classic.
Yeah, I agree.
Still in the present day, Kat shows up to the Herald and Byron shows her to her desk and it's covered in a giant stack of books. And he says, it gives you a little bit of privacy. And she's pitching all these columns that she wants to write. One about mothers and daughters. And Byron's like, well, I got an assignment for you. You're too new. You don't get to decide what you're writing about here, Kat. Step back a minute. Mm-hmm. And we cut to her interviewing a farmer about the town's biggest cucumber.
Which is weird. However, we will get a voiceover later on of her article, which then I feel ties up the episode nicely.
Okay.
We're back in high school now, and Spencer graciously invites Alice to his 16th birthday party. Now, I'm like, where is Spencer's girlfriend that we have seen the last 2 episodes?
Is Zoe his girlfriend or are they just buddies?
Oh, maybe they're just friends. I kind of assumed that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but I don't remember exactly.
Okay. I don't know that we've gotten any specific evidence one way or the other.
Okay. So anyway, I think it's real nice that he invites her to come to the party, and she obviously wants to jump back in the pond and head back to 1999 because that's truly like, she doesn't even care about present day. She's really into finding out stuff of the past,
Yeah, when she says she's found her place, she doesn't mean in 2023 Port Haven.
Right. She's just on assignment.
Right. We jump back to the Herald, and Byron does not love Kat's first article. He says there's no passion, and I 100% agree with Byron here. He says, it feels like you're writing like you're too good for this town, like you are above it. And Kat says she feels like it's a step back. And I think that's a real shit move, Kat. This guy gave you a job, right? Don't act like these people are beneath you. You came back home because you needed a place to go.
Yeah, well, I think that's the umbrella here, is that I think she does think it was a humbling experience for her to return home.
Yes.
Right? So the whole scenario of her coming back home, it feels like a real step back, considering that she's now divorced and doesn't have a home and, whatever. So, I mean, I think Byron handled it well. I mean, I think he gave her a piece of humble pie and was like, look, here's where we are.
Yes. Show me that you care is what he says to her.
Now we're back in 1999. Allie, I call her Allie because that's what my shorthand in my notes.
That's what Kat calls her.
Okay. So Alice, emerges from the pond and she climbs on out and she goes to grab her backpack that's stashed, but she notices that it's dirty and then looks up and sees that the leaves have changed. She has definitely been gone a while and is confused because it had only been just a day that she had been there.
Mm-hmm. We find out she's been gone for 2 months. And she runs to Elliot and realizes the pond has the ability to send you forward in massive leaps of time. And this is when Elliot journals something that he will say as adult Elliot, but he writes it as a question. Does the pond decide where Alice goes? And we know that to be the case, that the pond decides when she's allowed to go and when she will go to.
Right. So I wonder, are we going to be playing with this timeline? Like, is it always going to be back? Is it always going to be now where we're at? Like, or is that going to be like a sliding scale? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly. The first time when Alice is in Kat's room, she does look at the calendar and we do see that it's 1999, but I don't remember if we saw what month it was.
That's a great point.
I don't know. I don't know if it matters. Mm-hmm. Alice is super worried that Kat's going to be mad that she's been gone for so long. She kind of like ghosted her basically. So she runs to Kat's bedroom and she's apologizing and she's like, I'm so sorry, I should have texted you. Kat's like, texted? What are you talking about? But it's so funny, like it's just completely brushed over. Like, wouldn't you be like, what does that mean, texted? I would be like, what are you talking about?
Yes, I'm not able to let things go easily.
Yeah, me neither.
And the fact that Alice is making mistakes and saying things like texted or that's so retro. I mean, she's having natural reactions. Like that's what she would say to a friend. She's not used to editing herself for 24 years in the past.
Right. I was wondering in this part of the show too, I was like, did she purposely leave her phone behind? Because that would be a real telltale if she had an Apple iPhone in her pocket when she shows up.
Yes. I think whether it was on purpose or not, I think she does so her mom can't track her because she doesn't want to leave it on the bank of the pond.
Right.
And she doesn't want to jump into the pond with it.
Right.
And, Kat accepts her apology, and then she takes her to a bonfire at the point, and we meet baby Monica for the first time.
She takes her to a party at the Cove. The Point is the restaurant. It's all right. Yeah, she takes her to this bonfire, and we meet Nick.
My brain, time travel has scrambled it, and I was like, oh, that's baby Colton, but no, that doesn't make any sense, so...
That's Grandpa. So that would be just a real mix of time travel happening there.
Yes, and would be particularly problematic because it's instantly clear that Alice is crushing on Nick.
Exactly. Next scene, we have the return of Rita.
Ugh, Rita.
Best friend Rita. She visits Dale, and Dale's working on her boat, and Rita's excited to have dinner and drink some wine and hang out like friends do. But Byron crashes in. Actually, he doesn't crash in. He's coming over to give a set of keys to Kat for the office. Rita is not happy with his arrival.
Rita's gonna Rita, man.
Dude, what is her deal?
She rolls her eyes. She is just so over Byron. When Rita arrived, I kind of had that like, Dell's just not that into Rita moment. She's like, all right, I'll take the glass of wine. But Rita definitely does not want their moment interrupted by new crush Byron.
Right. What's the story there? I don't get it. We're still in present day, and Kat is still working on or reworking her article on the cucumber at the point. And Monica softens her. She pours her a drink. They chit chat. Now, I'm a little leery of Monica. I hope her intentions are good.
So we watched this episode together, and immediately Wendy's like, I don't trust it. And my immediate reaction, naive that I am, although I do think it ends up being accurate, I'm immediately happy that she's softening and that these two are starting to connect a little bit.
Right. I'm happy about it too. I'm just like, ugh. And moreover, Kat does need more friends.
Yeah.
And Monica even says that, like, you can't just talk to Elliot. So now we're establishing, okay, so Kat is getting comfortable and she is making friendships and creating her own community.
I wonder if Monica knows how Elliot feels about Kat and feels like Kat relying on him too much isn't fair to Elliot, knowing that he has stronger feelings for her than she has for him.
Yeah, but then that's like a real shit move if she's trying to like hook Kat up with that other dude.
Excellent point. We cut back to Del and Rita confesses that she's the one who told the tourists about the bow, and I believe this is the moment at which Wendy yelled, "Stop meddling, Rita."
She is too invested, and Del agrees with me.
She does. She says, "Stop using me as a charity case." She's pissed.
Yeah, and this scene is real uncomfortable, right? These two women, mature women, yelling at each other, and Byron's like, "Ladies," like,
and Rita says, "Shut up, new guy."
Oh, so funny. And obviously that's like a throwback line to a couple episodes before when she called him new guy, and he's like, "I've been here 6 years."
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
We cut back to Monica and Kat, and they're bonding over having teenagers. And at this point, they both apologize to each other. Kat apologizes for acting like the town is beneath her, and Monica apologizes for pretending like she has it all together. And I like that these two are bonding in this moment. In walks Andie, wowie zowie alert, played by Alex Malari Jr., who is on the IMDb for this show, which leads me to believe he's more than just a casual introduction.
He's also on Ginny and Georgia.
Yeah.
He plays the PI on Ginny and Georgia. I can't remember his name. It's nice to see him on another series.
Agree.
And Monica here is encouraging Kat to pursue, like, you're single now, single lady. Let's get with it. But Kat's like, what?
It's
Oh, okay.
Cut back to 1999. They're still at the bonfire, and Alice and Nick are talking, and Nick is talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Californication album, noticed in the 90s, and how he thinks that album's really gonna really going to have some meaning in the long run.
Yeah, so it's funny here. I received a message from listener Paula about this particular scene. She says, I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers reference, although it was the wrong song. And I was like, what do you mean the reference and the wrong song? She says that Nick is referencing Californication, which we know, but episode 2 was titled Scar Tissue, which came from Californication. So I think there's just like some disconnect on that episode was named after the Red Hot Chili Pepper song, but now it's only this episode that we're getting like the reference. Do you hear me?
And Alice tells a beautiful story about why she plays music. And then we get Nick playing the guitar badly.
He's real bad.
I have another notice in the 90s moment, which is Kat is wearing a string of butterfly clips in her hair.
It's so bad.
You know.
It's so bad.
I wore those in college. 1999, I was in college. I have photos. Ooh.
Oh my goodness. Not the greatest look. No. So Kat encourages Alice to play the guitar, and she picks it up and sings an acoustic version of Britney Spears' Baby Hit Me One More Time. Everybody's excited.
Totally. I was excited. That was a great version of that song.
I know. So good. And I was wondering, does Sadie Snow, is she an actual singer? Is she singing these songs, right? She's gotta be. Yeah, she's real good.
Mm-hmm. And the cops arrive and everybody runs.
Yeah, but here's a did you see that moment? I know we don't do that in this these episodes.
I love it. Bring it on.
Well, the cops get there and the kids scatter, but you see there's a full cooler of soda.
Leave it
of soda. It's not even like they have like red cups or like anything. You know what I mean? They're just hanging out. I'm like, why would they be in trouble?
Yeah, it's still, the sun's still up.
Yeah.
They're just gathering. And we cut to the present day where Dell is having flashbacks of the boat. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have about that moment.
Me too. Dell remembers Colton in the boat.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
It's kind of weird. Like, there's nothing really going on there. Still in present day, we cut back to Alice and Nick, and they're hiding from the cops. The sun has gone down. The cops are not looking for you. You're not on the lam. You do not need to hide for that long. They're done with you. They just wanted to break up the party.
Yes. And this is a perfect excuse for Nick and Alice to get cozy and share a smooch.
And in this moment, I'm like, oh no, Alice, you're missing Spencer's party. Because right before it was about to be broken up, she was about to leave and jump in the pond and head back to Spencer's party.
Right. And so Kat invites Allie to spend the night. And Elliot's like, what are you doing? Like, you need to
go home.
You got to go home. And she's like, no, I'm choosing to stay regardless of the trouble she's going to get into in present day. And here you have a real problem because she has to explain her absences in 1999 as well as present day.
Yes, although I do think it's easier to say, I have to go home to Kat than it is to explain to her mother why she was out all night, inexplicably nowhere to be found.
Yes, exactly.
Alice and Kat are in their jammies, gossiping about the kiss, being 15-year-old girls, and Alice very humorously wonders if he's her boyfriend now, and Kat's like, well, I have a boyfriend. And here's our first 1999 mention of Braden/Brady.
A couple things here. Mm-hmm. Why do you think they have nicknames for all of these characters?
Oh, I don't know.
It's a little bit confusing for me, to be honest.
Okay.
Because we have, his name's Braden, but I call him Brady. We have Dell, who is obviously Delilah and Deli. We have Alice, who's Allie, and Kat and Catherine. It's just like a lot of... It would be confusing for a person to come in who didn't know who these characters were.
Yeah, that's interesting. To me, it just kind of warms the characters up. That they all, because that's real life, that everyone has these nicknames for people.
True. Mm-hmm.
I think, but because there's so much going on, it can be a little bit confusing.
Yes. I also want to mention that this scene with Kat and Alice as teenagers being in, I think they're up in the Elliott's treehouse or loft or whatever they're in. But this scene with the two of them laying there in bed and just talking really took me back to being a teenager. And those moments, like being with your best friend and you're talking in bed before you go to sleep, and the giggles and such a good time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is definitely what best friends do right at this point. And they share secrets. Kat shares the secret of of meeting this boy and how, you know, he's a secret from the family because she's worried that Del won't like him or his family because they come from money. And she asks Alice, like, do you have secrets? And here Alice takes a beat and tells her that she can time travel.
And of course, Kat thinks she's joking, which is the correct response.
Right, because what are you going to be like? Okay, cool. Night.
Yeah.
So now we're back in present day, and Alice is running through the farm early a.m. trying to get home so nobody, you know, had missed her.
Come on. This doesn't make any sense to me. Go ahead.
And then I'm gonna point out this is where Megan's gonna Megan. and I would too, trust me. So Del sees Alice running through and she's like, that's weird. And Alice climbs into her room, gets back in bed.
With wet hair.
And she texts Spencer and says, like, you know, sorry for flaking on the party, blah, 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 whatever. Kat comes in and compliments her. Or she basically is like, oh, you're still in bed. And this is where Megan went yesterday when we were watching it together. What?
There's no way Kat's not waiting up for this kid.
Right. Yeah, especially since she went missing like just days before.
Also,
yeah.
When I was a teenager, my dad would wait up for me. And if for some reason they didn't wait up, I had to go in and wake my parents up when I came home. There was no like sneaking in, going to my room, and they didn't know if I was home or not.
Right.
Come on. I know you say like I'm being Megan here, but are you letting your 15, you're going to bed and you don't know where your 15-year-old is and you're just like, she'll show up. No. Maybe we could say like, oh, she believed her to be at Spencer's, so she figured she was fine and she just went to bed. But I don't buy it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, and on top of that, she had Monica telling her like, hey, she's safe at my house.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. So, I mean, there's some built-in backstory there of like maybe she wasn't tracking her on Life 360 to see like where she was at. But yes, as a mom to a 15-year-old, I am likely making sure she is snuggled into her bed at night.
Yes.
Anyway, I just want to point out here, I really, really love the bedspread on Alice's bed here. It's real cute. But anyway, here we go. Kat's like complimenting her and telling her how great she's doing in Port Haven. Remember, it's only been like 3 or 4 or 5 days now at this point. And that Alice is really building her trust back in her mom. And then Kat leaves and you see Alice feels real guilty.
She does. And prior to this, when she came in, we saw a bunch of texts from Spencer. Like, are you coming? Are you running late? And she lies and says that she was sick. Right. Now, I kind of like saw this like foreshadowing moment when we see Monica talking to Kat in the diner about how Spencer's hosting this party and Alice is there. I suspect that this was going to blow up in her face.
Well, sure. Like, you can't ever count on teenagers not running into your parents somewhere. You got to cover your bases.
Right. Especially in a small town.
Exactly. And Spencer and Alice don't have that kind of relationship to be like, oh, I got to go do something else. But if you see my mom, tell her that I was at your party. Yeah. No.
We're in the kitchen.
We're still talking about the damn boat.
Yeah. Alice still wants Del to keep the boat. And we get a flash forward to Colton on the boat. We find out where the scratches on the boat came from as he kind of crashes into the dock, as it were. And he says, I can't find him. He's gone.
We have to be talking about Jacob, right?
We have to assume. However, there's a line in a minute that's confusing to me.
Okay.
But we finally get another softening of Del. And she says, Kat, you're a good mom. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. God, Mom, what do I have to do?
No, Kat definitely needed some reassurance here, I think. And Del did need to realize that Alice is her granddaughter. She has a parent here. So she has to relinquish some of those, parenting moments to her actual mother.
Yes. Alice runs into Mr. Augustine at school and says, when are you going to tell me that the pond can send me ahead in time? And he doesn't really want to meddle with what she knows and what she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Then we get Monica and Kat back at the point. And in walks Andie again, who introduces himself again. They just met last night.
Yeah, like really.
But Monica's like giving the big obvious mime, like, give him your number.
Right.
And they all clock that and Kat gives Andie her number.
Exactly. She writes it down on a napkin.
I know, like, give me your phone.
Yeah. Weird. Spencer arrives at the point, and this is when Alice's lie all falls apart because Kat says, hey, thanks so much for including Alice in your party. And he's like, oh, yeah, too bad she couldn't come. Whoa.
Yeah. Did he seem annoyed to you?
Yes. That's why I'm like...
I don't think that's his girlfriend.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if, like, is he crushing on her a little bit? Like, truly, why would he text her so many times? Like, are you coming? Where are you coming? Why are you here? Is everything okay? Blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, agree.
I swear they were holding hands, though, in the first episode.
Oh, okay.
But I can't recall.
Well, it also could just be like he's trying to reach out and feels like, hey, I was being a good dude and you're not being a good dude in return. Especially because Alice is not terribly well liked at the school. So Spencer's kind of going out on a limb by extending this olive branch.
Right.
And now this is the moment I hate because Monica knows that Kat has been lied to. They had this bonding moment and she knows that, oh, Kat trusted her daughter and boom, that did not go well.
So you don't like this scene because you don't want Monica to know?
I don't dislike this scene. I just felt secondhand embarrassment for Kat because if another parent found out that my kid were lying to me, that I was the last to know, I'd feel not great.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Cut back to the kitchen. Alice is singing Brittany at the table. Adele announces she's going to keep the boat. And Alice says, I'm going to go meet up with Spencer and Zoe. And Kat does not bust her.
This is a cool move by Mom.
Yeah.
I don't have any chill like
Me
this.
either. I'd be like, no, you're not. Where were you last night?
Totally.
I would have busted that door down and been like, young lady, 100%. No chill.
Well, she's definitely... Well, at this point, I was like, oh, she's trying to set Alice up to, you know... expose her cards or whatever. Anyway, but during this scene too, Kat shows Dell the article, the new article that she had written about the cucumber, and we have this voiceover. Kat's basically, it's her voice reading the article, and they're talking about trust is what it comes down to.
He didn't set out to grow the biggest cucumber.
Yeah, he just trusted the soil. I don't know, whatever. The main theme there is about trust, and now we have Kat who doesn't trust Alice anymore. So she is following Alice out to the pond.
You know, I also see in that moment, in addition to that article being about trust, a little bit about, you know, Kat wasn't necessarily expecting to find happiness or a place at home. She was coming home as a last resort. And I think with the connection to Monica, with giving her number to Andie, she's with having a job, she's starting to feel like even what she planned to do is turning into something different.
Right. Now, before moving on, what is your line that you didn't like? Something about the boat?
I think it happens when Dell tells Kat that she's a good mom and they're on the boat and they're talking about Alice and Alice kind of pressuring Dell to keep the boat. And Kat says, she doesn't know we never took the boat out.
Okay. Yes.
But we see Colton on the boat. Now, it could be that the only time the boat was taken out was to look for the him in that moment that we see, which we assume is Jacob, but we don't know. And Kat doesn't know about it. Or is there something else going on?
Right.
That's what I don't know. Could be nothing.
Got it. Totally understand. So now we see Kat sees Alice jump into the pond. And Alice does not come back up. So Kat's like, what the hell? Well, she doesn't say what the hell, but she like runs down to the pond, yelling her name, and then jumps into the pond after her.
And the question is it clever editing or does Kat really not come back up?
Well, I saw the preview for next week.
Oh.
Kat is back in 1999.
So when we were watching this, I was like, this is really going to mess up the space-time continuum if she runs into her younger self.
Totally.
Everything we know about time travel says do not meet your younger self. So we shall see.
But what I like about it is now we don't just have Alice's storyline of her returning to the past. Now we have Kat returning to the past. And so it's going to open this whole new chapter, I feel like.
Yes, that's a great point. And I think I like that we're going to get Kat in on this secret because it's not sustainable for Alice to continue to time. She can't keep disappearing.
Right.
And so they both have motivation to want to return to the past for different reasons. And so hopefully they can work as a team.
Well, I think Kat's biggest motivation would be to obviously not lose her brother.
Yes, or find out what happened.
Exactly. Now, speaking of what happened, last week I did put a poll on our Girls Gone Hallmark Instagram. Now, are you interested in hearing what people think happened to Jake?
Very.
Here are some responses, and I'm going to tell you they're all very similar. He is in another time. He's a traveler too. He jumped into the lake, obviously. He ended up with Jamie and Claire from Outlander. I don't watch that show. It's a joke that I don't get. He's trapped in time travel and can't figure out how to get back. He fell into the pond and he's in the future somewhere. They're basically all the same. And then there's two very dark ones.
Uh-oh.
He was kidnapped.
Uh-huh.
Child abduction.
Oh, no.
I'm like, this would take a real turn.
Yeah, which, to be fair, it could be any of these things.
Right.
He was there 1 second and he wasn't the next. So where did he go?
Is it more likely he was abducted, traveling back to 1999
right?
or where?
Stuck in a time loop and he can't get out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm gonna side with abduction.
Hey, it's not a bad choice there. Let's talk about our homie of the week.
Yes, ma'am.
We are awarding this week's homie of the week to one Miss Monica for making the first move, breaking the ice with Kat, reconnecting these two old friends. What I'm curious to see, though, is when we meet young Monica in the past, she is the first Monica that we meet. She's kind of shady. Mm-hmm. So when are we going to see them become friends in the past?
I don't know. Because they clearly don't like each other in 1999.
No, they did not seem to. But
right.
So did they always have this sort of antagonistic relationship, or do they become real friends? That's what I'd like to see. But Monica, you are our homie of the week, played by Samora Smallwood. Thank you for listening to this episode of Girls Gone Hallmark. If you enjoyed these episodes, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend. Let them know. Leave our podcast a 5-star rating and a review in the Apple Podcast app. And we will be back next week with another movie review and episode 4 of The Way Home. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.